Justin, what do you do all day that keeps you in this high frequency, mindful awareness living? That's a good question. Let's start with that. And then later, what does your life without goals actually look like? Okay, what do you do all day that keeps you in this high frequency awareness living? So the most important thing is how you start your day. You have to realize that every single day is a new opportunity for you to start living. It's a new opportunity for you to you have a blank slate, right? Your mind starts off super slow, unless you've had like terrible nightmares all night. You wake up and your mind is like, oh, tired. And it's kind of blank. And then it's like, coffee, shower. What was that dream again? It's very rare that we have the privilege of having such long gaps between our thoughts as we do in the morning. And we can take advantage of that by meditating in the morning. And for me, it works best if I first get out of bed and I take a shower, I prepare a hot beverage. Today I have coffee. It's funny to say that because I've made so many videos about the side effects of coffee. It's your decision. Live your own life. Don't look at other people on what to consume and do with your body. Okay, make these make these decisions yourself. Anyway, so I make a cup of coffee and then I go back to my bed and I just sit on the corner of my bed and just look out the window. And today was a very beautiful day. We had the first snow here that fell yesterday and everything was very white and the sky was clear and it was very beautiful to just sit there and observe everything. But the point is not to sit and just have this appreciation for life. The point is just to get into, as you say, like this alignment of where I want to be spiritually and mentally for the rest of the day. And then I just sit on the corner of my bed and I will do different things, just to give you an example, like today I would listen to a spiritual podcast from one of my favorite teachers, Eckhart Tolle, who just gave a lecture on being in the world but not being of the world, right? So making this distinction. And then I would just have my coffee and I would just become still and I would do a lot of very different sort of meditation practices that I've picked up over the years. It really depends on the day, it depends on the challenges you're facing. Sometimes it can be appreciation, sometimes it can just be, be grateful and put your mind into a grateful state of mind, and then that kind of just carries you out through the day. But it's really just about getting to that point that I have trouble putting words on it, but it's a peaceful state of mind, right? It's your true self, and the more you practice this, the more you become familiar with the fact that there are two versions of you. There's this one version who is just completely careless and is okay with everything in this world, every single chance. It's okay. You just still feel super amazing all the time. You are high vibrational, no matter what happens. That's one version of you. And then there's another version of you that is not that maybe wants to be that, right? Or maybe has challenges, or maybe thinks that life is quite dreadful. So there are these two versions of yourself, and the whole point is just to do whatever it takes in the first couple of hours of the day to get into that, to get into the good state. Again, appreciation, gratitude, listen to spiritual podcasts, put on some gratitude music. I have this amazing playlist that I listen to every day almost recently, which is just a bunch of songs that calibrate really high. And I might make my own Spotify playlist later on. Let me know if you want to listen to that. Anyway, so yeah, so you see all these things have sort of the same common trait, right? They are high vibrational. However, they're all external, like the podcast, the music, they all come from the outside. The beautiful sky, right? The appreciation for the birds and all that, it all comes from the outside. But the point is for that to invoke this inside of you, right? And that's what we call becoming still, right? It's just deciding to be still. What does it mean to decide to be still? Well, it means that you're aligning with yourself by letting go of your identification to everything that is going on the physical level, both good and bad. Like, you become still, and then you start noticing how, okay, you're feeling this sensation in your body and this sensation in your body, and you have these thoughts, and everything is just going by, including you as an observer of all of that happening, right? The mind's eye that is observing all these things and saying, oh, that's grateful, and oh, I feel good, and now I feel bad. And you're observing that as well. And you just kind of let life happen to you. And when you feel that life is just happening to you and that you're not trying to manage life, that's a sign that you are in the right place, or that you're doing something right. And from this place, life really just takes care of itself. You will feel a very strong pull towards doing certain things rather than having to think about what to do. Right? So it's a very, very different energy. And it's very freeing, again, because you let life take care of itself. Right? So what does that mean? Well, it means that you can really just, on an intellectual level, do nothing. So when you ask, what do I do all day to stay high vibrational? Well, exactly nothing. Like, if there's one thing I do, it's just ask myself occasionally, am I now where I want to be, internally, or am I not? And if the answer is not, okay, then cool, we go back to the practice, we go back to all these things that we've picked up, the gratitude, the stillness, the taking a conscious breath, whatever it takes. Different situations require different things. Challenges. Lately, for example, I've started to really appreciate some of the internal challenges that I'm getting, right? So if I'm like getting all these, like some psychological pain or something, I'm like, okay, that's cool, because I know in my heart that even in those situations, I have the opportunity to become still, to become that, peaceful, euphoric version of myself. Even in those situations, I can become that perfect version of myself. And in fact, when you have those challenges, you have a stronger desire and a stronger motivation to become that, to free yourself from these psychological sufferings. And even, to some extent, physical sufferings, physical discomforts. You will realize that most of them actually are only bad because the mind identification is saying that they're bad. Because the mind has certain attachments to certain things, like maybe there is an attachment that you can't have a good life. Just an example, if you can go for walks every single day, and then you injure your leg and now you're just laying on your bed, and now what, right? Now your life is ruined, right? Again, all that is just a story. That's just a narrative that comes from this mind identification. It's not real. When you examine it, you realize, okay, that was actually maybe not the case, right? And then I can actually feel pretty good when I'm just laying in bed. That's actually when I find it easiest to practice these things, when I'm just laying still. It's not when I'm sitting upright, it's not when I'm meditating, it's not even necessarily when I'm talking, right? Because when I'm laying still, it's just you can really get deep into that present awareness, and that can feel really, really amazing. And but then obviously you can't really participate in this world if you're just laying there all the time, right? Or if you're just sitting in the same position all day. So, and that's when you get those callings to do certain things that you love doing. You will inevitably, if you're just laying there and you do nothing at all, no mind activity, nothing, the influx of energy is going to come, right? And when that energy is going to come, and it can be a physical influx of energy, when your body just starts to, almost shake, and you're like, okay, I have to go to the gym. It's like there's no discussion. I have to go. Or you get the mental influx of energy, and you're like, oh, I want to be mentally stimulated. And now, you align the sort of the need for mental stimulation with your high vibrational state. Now, when these two come together, you start doing things that you love doing in this world. Like, I love talking, right? I love writing. I love all these things that I love doing, and those are the things that my sort of higher intelligence, let's just say, is calling me to do. Because on a personal level, those are the things that I'm passionate about. It's writing, it's teaching, it's talking, it's being creative, designing, sometimes copywriting. So these things can differ for everyone, right? Going to the gym, of course. I love going to the gym. I love bodybuilding. I think that's really fun to do. And and you could kind of replace these things with something else, right? So on a physical level, you might have something like martial arts, which is also something I did for quite a while. It's also a very good way for you to expand your energy. It could be going for a walk. It could be whatever it is. And then on the mental level, again, whatever you like doing, maybe you like to craft something with your hands. That's something that I've never really had a desire to do. But my sister, for example, she loves painting and drawing and using her hands to express herself. For me, it's more of I like to build things in my imagination, and then manifest them in the digital world. So you see, it's different for everyone, and also these things are changing all the time. But you see, the point is not to ask yourself what to do or what not to do. It's more to do with just becoming still. Become still, align yourself with the being, and then the energy is going to pull you towards all these things eventually. But it will not feel like it's you doing them. It will feel like they're just happening. It's a bit hard to describe, but there's no longer this force to do things, let me just look at the question again. I feel like I lost track a little bit here. So Okay, what do you do all day that keeps you in this high frequency mindful awareness living? Yes, so as I said, on a doing level, all I do is just ask myself, am I currently internally where I want to be or not? And the question usually only really arises when I'm not where I want to be, what I would call unconsciousness. If I'm unconscious, I'm just, okay, something is wrong. You usually get like some psychological pain or like some physical pain. You're like, okay, this is not what life is supposed to be like. And then the only conclusion I'm making out of that is just, okay, cool, I'm unconscious. I have diverted from my practice. Snap out of it. Back to all these things that might work. Again, 9 million different ways. Just try them out. As you go along, you have more and more so-called tools in your box, right? And some tools will work for a bit and then they stop working, right? So now, right now, as I'm going through these couple of weeks, I'm really focused on this word stillness for some reason. Like I'm just, okay, whenever I feel that discomfort, I just remind myself, okay, become still. And for some reason this works right now. But if you ask me in a couple of weeks, just become still, I will probably be like, oh, whatever, something else is now working, because the mind gets bored, I guess, of these strategies that we're using, of the words, of the concepts, and then something new is required. And same with consciousness itself. Consciousness is very, very fluid. It doesn't like to be stuck on certain words. I think it's hilarious to see the different spiritual teachers. They never agree on terminology. It's like when you have two spiritual teachers talking with each other, one is like, okay, so life is about becoming high vibrational, and then the other one is like, that's not what I would say. I would say it's about becoming aware. And then the third one would be like, you're both wrong, it's about enlightenment. And then the fourth one comes from the side, he's like, all three of you, it's cool that this works for you, but I would say it completely differently. I would not use any of those words. Okay, cool. It's like everyone has different ways of explaining these things, but it's all the same, right? And when you realize what that same is, when you become familiar with that, it's enough for you to just have that desire to get there, right? You're not getting anywhere, but you just recognize that you're not where you want to be. You recognize and have faith that any situation that you're going through has the opportunity for you to become really high vibrational and feel really amazing no matter what it is. And yes, it does require for you to let go of whatever it is that you're currently holding on to. It could be that you're holding on to this story in your mind. It could be that you're holding on to this physical body in some way. It could be that you're holding on to a mental identity of yourself. It could be that you're holding on to a certain goal or desire or a certain outcome or a certain way that things have to be for you to feel good, like, oh, so it has to be the middle of the day, and I have to have my coffee, and it has to be light outside, and if it's December, there has to be snow outside. Whatever it is that you're attached to, you have to let go of all of it. And same with letting go. It's something different every single day, because you don't need to let go of the same thing twice. So if you've already let go of your past and your childhood trauma, and you've accepted that, okay, you might have certain thoughts and they're just always going to be there, but you're no longer being defined by this story. You don't need to let go of that every single day. You've already let go of that once. So now you will discover that you wake up today and that was something new. And this can be really fun, a very liberating process, knowing that all you have to do is just let go of these things once, and then they're gone forever, right? At least the mental identification. Certain thoughts might come back, certain things on the outside might trigger certain thoughts, but you no longer have that strong sort of, they no longer have the strong grip on you, right? These things. It's just something that you have learned to be in, right? And now these thoughts just become clouds. They're just coming by, coming through you, rather than you sitting on the cloud, looking around, thinking like, why can't I just feel good? I've already let go of all these clouds. Well, you're sitting on one right now. What is that cloud that you're sitting on? And this is what David R. Hawkins is kind of referring to when he's talking about raising your level of consciousness. How do you do it? When he was asked that question, he said, the number one thing is to let go of the thing that worked in your current paradigm. So if you, for example, experience that, okay, so for a while now, it really worked for you to practice, let's just say, gratitude, right? For a while, it really worked for you to practice gratitude, but now suddenly it no longer worked. Okay, so try letting go of that thing that worked for you for so long, such as your gratitude practice. Okay, and then you might experience a little bit of fear because, but now all these negative thoughts are coming by, and what if I manifest all these bad things? Well, have courage, have, trust that you are not the mind, okay? And, and just let all these, whatever thoughts have to come up, just let them come up and accept that, and just know that when they come up and they resurface, they disappear and you become lighter. The negativity falls out of you and you start feeling better. Just let whatever thoughts need to come, just let them come. Just say, I'm ready for anything. I'm ready to think whatever negativity, whatever it is. And you just let that all come up to the surface and it comes out and you start feeling lighter, you start feeling better. And attracting things in life depends on what you feel like, not what you're thinking. So the fact that letting yourself think bad things on certain days frees you and makes you feel better, makes you attract better things. So you see, don't be afraid of whatever the mind comes up with. Don't resist it, don't fight it. Let the mind run its course. And realize that it's about feeling, manifestation is about feeling good. And nothing feels better than just taking the back seat and say, none of these thoughts are my thoughts. Now, and to the second part of the question, what does your life without goals actually look like? So without goals, I guess, without goals. So, so my primary goal is to obviously manage this, being the being, right? Basically being the being, and then create and be and talk and act and everything from the being, just live from the being, right? That's my goal. That's my only goal. And then on sort of secondary to that, obviously there are some goals, right? There are some goals, but they take up maybe, less than 1% of my awareness, right? So they're very unimportant. So for example, if on a micro scale, if I'm going for a walk, I might have a goal to go to, let's say, the park, right? And then after the park, I will go do some grocery shopping, and then I will come back home, right? But those goals, like the park and the grocery shopping, they are totally irrelevant and totally insignificant to the process. What's important is this very moment right now. As I'm putting on my jacket to go for the walk, I'm feeling the texture of the jacket. I'm trying to really be in that moment. When I'm tying my shoes, I don't do it compulsively. I try to be in every single micro movement as consciously as possible. when the mind starts gravitating towards the future outcome of seeing the park and, oh, how good it's going to be to see all these trees and maybe, you know, talk to some people or whatever, back again, back to the very act of tying the shoes, and then the very, very motion of taking the hand consciously on the door handle. You see, it's very, very consciously, very, very present as much as possible in the moment, in the now. So you see, the goals themselves are not that important. You know, when it comes to like the macro scale, you know, the bigger goals, you know, I might have goals for the growth on this YouTube channel. But again, they are just like some little dot in the future somewhere that I'm going for, you know, maybe in circles, maybe I'm, you know, like going around, or you know, and then every once in a while I'm looking at that goal and I'm maybe changing my direction a little bit. But I'm in the movement, and that's my goal, right? So you see, the very first step that I'm taking towards that goal, such as, you know, the very words that are coming out of my mouth right now, that is my goal. To maintain my present awareness as I'm making these videos, to enjoy this process as much as possible, not some little dot in the future. So obviously you can have goals, but if this is your life, then this dot right here would be your goals. So I hope that clarifies the answer a little bit. Now, I used to be very curious myself about my own teachers when I was first starting to meditate. I was like, what do they do all day? Because I was just practicing this awareness, and I was very uninterested in life on an external level, right? I didn't really care about what I was doing with my life, right? Everyone else was very focused on their careers. I was just playing video games and, you know, looking at the ocean and just driving around in my car and just listening to music and hanging out with friends. And I did a podcast back then with a friend of mine just because I enjoyed it. I just not really having any goals, and back then I was very concerned about, okay, so what about my teachers? What do they do on a daily level? You know, what does their schedule actually look like from the moment they wake up and to the moment they go to bed? And you know, and there's really no reason to be concerned about what other people do with their days, you know, because you can get trapped in subtle sort of expectations for how your day should look like. You know, if you consider yourself spiritual and you have your spiritual teacher who never drinks coffee, you might be fooled to think that, like, okay, so if I want to be spiritual, I can't drink coffee either. Even though you have a completely different metabolism that allows you to drink coffee with no ill effects, it's beneficial to you and it's aiding you in your process of your conscious awakening and your spiritual progress. And it's a pleasure that you enjoy with very little downsides. You see, you can have many different expressions of someone who lives a spiritual life. You know, some are smoking cigarettes. You know, some are eating a lot of food and, you know, are really fat. You know, some are the opposite. Some are really skinny. You know, and obviously there are some things that are definitely preventing us from spiritual progress. the so-called deadly sins, right? Sin means that you're missing the mark. It's not as dramatic as people think it is. It just means that you're not. If you're a bow shooter, it means that you're just missing the target. That's a sin. So the 7 deadly sins, gluttony, lust, those two are normally considered some of the worst ones when it comes to your spiritual progress, because they create very, very strong mind identifications. So if you notice that when you are in a fasted state, it's much easier for you to be spiritual when you're not eating. And then when you do eat, right, there is this, it requires a very high intensity of consciousness to remain spiritual as you're eating, because the animalistic nature in us just takes over, and then we just start eating very fast, and we kind of lose ourselves in the act of this physical necessity. And the same with lust. Again, these two very primal things, you know, the food and the reproduction, right? Those two are like very strong forces that are something to look out for. But even then, you have spiritual teachers who will have a lot of sex and will eat a lot of food, but they're still very spiritual because they're not being attached to these things. And in the beginning, it can help you to you know, to look at these things and say, okay, so I should maybe avoid these things for a while, you know, just to get familiar with what it's like to not, you know, I can't really remember those 7 deadly sins. Let's just look them up. For a while, it can be helpful to okay, so lust is obviously, yeah, so lust, number 1. Become familiar with your lustful thoughts, and then letting go of them, let go of any attachment you might have to, you know, you should do that anyway, right? You shouldn't be carrying that at all. Letting go of the act of sex, of, you know, sexual pleasure, you can take a fast from that, you can take a break from that to become familiar with what's that like, and to examine yourself if you have overcome these things or not. But that's not the point, and that's not the sort of the main thing of it all. It's not how you go about these things. It's the energetic frequency inside of you as you are engaging in life itself. If you feel totally at peace and life couldn't be better as it is right now, and you feel totally calm in your own being, and you're just really grateful, and everything is just 10 out of 10 as it is on a continuous basis, you're probably doing it right. And when it comes to mind identification, there are these 7 sort of subcategories of mind identification, and there's lust, you know, gluttony, pride, sloth, wrath, greed, envy. So wrath is like anger, greed is like, you know, very obvious, envy, again, very obvious one, pride, very, very, very obvious as well, gluttony, very strong, but also very obvious once you become familiar with your fasted state, and the same with lust, very obvious. What's less obvious, maybe the sloth, the so-called laziness or lack of effort. The last time I read about sloth, it was referring to spiritual sloth, actually. So it's not about whether or not you are working 16 hours in a job you don't like and doing it anyway because you don't want to, you know, be a sloth. No, it has more to do with you prioritizing your spiritual progress and not being lazy about your spiritual progress. So, because sometimes it does require a little bit of effort to get us started. You know, in the day, for example, you might wake up and you might feel like, oh, I meditated for the last 7 days. Can't I just, you know, take a chill today and just, you know, sit on my phone and scroll for a little bit in the morning, you know? You can do that. That is going to lead to suffering. That suffering is going to put you back in your place, so to say, and you will go back to your spiritual progress. But you could avoid that whole cycle. You can avoid that so-called deadly sin by avoiding the spiritual slothiness, by being strict with yourself, that as much as possible you will maintain your state to the best of your ability. Whenever you find yourself becoming unconscious, you remind yourself, okay, well, I'm unconscious right now, good. I do nothing else right now. I just become still. I return to my practice. I return to my being. I begin to observe my body, observe my thoughts. And then I let life do what life wants to do. And I let my higher intelligence do what needs to be done through me. I'm no longer participating in this life. It's just something bigger than me that is now bigger. The being just happens from the moment, right? The life just takes care of itself, right? And then you feel that all is well. No matter what was going on before that, all is now well. No matter what. So you see, this, holding this awareness requires some effort, some spiritual effort, we could say. Right? So this is what we mean with don't be a sloth. It means don't be a spiritual sloth. Don't lose your consciousness. So you see, it can be challenging sometimes, but at the same time it's very simple because you only have to do one thing. It's like your job description here on earth just says, stay conscious. Whenever you're in doubt about what to do, your responsibilities, so to say, just read your job description. Or as Jesus said, as I say to you, I say to all, stay awake. All right. I hope that answered your question, and thanks for watching.